Welcome to Brea Talks, an insider's look into topics that affect your experiences in the city of Brea. Whether you live, work, or play here, we are bringing you the information you need to better understand your city. So now we invite you to listen in as Brea Talks.
Hello, and thank you for joining us. I'm Aimée Matsumoto, and today, Brea Talks Summer Safety. With me today is Brea Fire Captain and Paramedic Justin Zuhlke. Justin, thank you so much for being here.
It's my pleasure.
Justin, tell us a little bit about yourself. How long have you been a firefighter?
So I started my career in 2000. I was hired with LA County Fire. I worked for LA County Fire Suppression Aid. I was basically what we call a brush bunny on a Type 1 fly crew. What that means is I was stationed in Malibu and did wildland firefighting. Did that for 2.5 years. And then I tested with Brea as an apprentice. We had like a reserve program and took a leave of absence from LA, came over here, worked as an apprentice and got hired full time, left LA. And I've been here since 2003.
Oh, wow.
Actually, before that, to predate all of that, I was an explorer at the age of 15 with the city of Brea.
Oh.
So, yeah, born and raised, local boy. Just kind of, starting as a kid, I never really wanted to be a fireman. I didn't know what I wanted to be, lawyer, doctor, all that stuff. And then one day, a good friend of mine, he was an explorer, took me to the station. So check this out. I used to make fun of him. I'm like, dude, come on. I'm not going to do that. And I walked through the fire station doors, and I was hooked.
Oh.
So, yeah, from there, I just pursued my career and been here since 2003.
That's awesome. We're lucky to have you.
Well, thank you. Happy to be here.
Last episode, we heard a lot about all the stuff happening in Brea over the summer. But today, we wanted to talk about the dangers that summer can bring and how to stay as safe as possible with people gathering for cookouts, kids in the pool, and what rising temperatures mean as far as wildfires risks.
Sure.
Yeah, so let's begin by talking a little bit about safety at friends and family gatherings.
Yeah, so summer rolls around, everybody's going to be pooling, barbecuing, hanging out, having a good time. We see both good side and bad side in the fire service, from people having a great time to, in an instant, turns into tragedy. People call 911 on their worst day of their lives. You can always equate that to drownings or near drownings. And it's not just with kids, it's with adults. So what we try and tell, there's multiple things, risks involved. You equate that with alcohol, people drinking, being not necessarily irresponsible by design or desire, but their mind goes elsewhere and they're not focused on the pool. So we try and tell people to have a designated individual at the pool, monitoring the pool, watching the kids, basically a lifeguard. Someone on duty who's not engaged in libations or alcohol or adult activities, if you will, and has that responsible mindset to keep an eye. And obviously someone who is first aid trained, not everyone is, or CPR trained, we'd recommend them take that role. And also we tell people to try and have a cell phone. It's so funny. It's like when you lose your keys, when you need them, you can't find them. It's the same thing with a cell phone. Everybody has it attached to their hips, but I know when I'm at a pool, my cell phone's inside. So if you think about it, time is life for someone who is in that situation, drowning, near drowning. So that person watching the pool have a cell phone on them at all times. So if in the event something were to happen, they can pick up the phone, dial 911, at least start the ball rolling. So we get going from the station with that response time. Just ultimately, I can't stress enough the importance of supervision around the pool. And I have 4 kids, and I always say, hey, I have a swim buddy. So who's your swim buddy? All my kids are pool safe, but it's just one of those things still, even though they're pool safe, make sure that you always keep an eye. And even tell those kids too, find an older kid who, takes that sense of pride and ownership to be the kid in charge and keep an eye on kids to help the adults as well. And it just instills that leadership role. So I try and instill that in my kids. And so always have that supervisory mindset. I understand that everybody likes to have a good time, but with that comes responsibility.
Right. Yeah. Well, that's really informative, and that's really good to know. I mean, I also have my phone inside. Like if I'm by the pool. Like, I'm
Yeah.
afraid it's going to fall into the water, and I'm not going to have a phone for a couple
Sure.
days, but
Totally.
it's, it makes sense to have it next to you, especially if you're watching the pool and making sure that all the kids or everybody's safe. And
Right.
if something were to happen, your phone
Right.
is right there. So what other ways can people be pool safe?
Pool gates, crucial. A lot of people during summer activities, they have the removable pool gates at night. Oh, we'll be in the pool tomorrow. They get lackadaisical, they get complacent, and they take their pool gate down and they leave it down for the duration of the summer. You hear stories of neighborhood kids wandering into backyards. It hasn't happened, nor I haven't been exposed to it, but you hear those stories of kids making access and falling in a pool and no one has any idea. It's got to be self-closing, self-latching pool gates. It's by design for code, for safety reasons. A lot of people, complacency is a given. Happens all the time. It's not going to happen to me. But then obviously it does. Yeah. So I can't stress the importance of just pool gates and pool safety and just making sure at night, after a party, after just swimming, making sure everything's locked up, ready to go, especially with young kids in the neighborhood or young kids in your house. So, yeah, it's pretty important.
It's almost like you have to have a checklist if you're a pool owner, right?
Sure.
So,
Yeah. Almost one of those things where it becomes repetition. It's like your daily motion. Everybody gets up, brush their teeth, have a cup of coffee. Well, before bed, okay, is the pool good? Is it locked up? Everything's good. Everything's put away. Slider doors closed and locked. My kids, I've got childproof locks on all the doors. All those things we don't normally think about on a regular basis. With the increase in pool and activity, the kids naturally gravitate towards water. I know I did as a kid.
Yeah.
They just want to get in it. So, yeah.
So with pool safety, would you suggest when, parents are shopping for swimwear for kiddos and novice swimmers, would you recommend steering away from like blues or light colors?
Sure. Any high visibility, I should say, for kids in swimsuits. And what's crazy is everything happens in fads. You go to stores nowadays and everything is bright and neon. It's like living in the 80s again.
Yeah.
Like the old ski slope full body jumpsuits, bright greens, bright blues. I wore one as a kid. Can't believe I just said it, but it's all right. Those suits are out there, so you can't get away from high vis stuff. So it's actually probably a blessing in disguise that come summertime, and that's actually popular now. The more loud you are, the better off, you're speaking volumes. Obviously, if someone, God forbid, were to be underwater, they're definitely be more visible.
Right.
So with that responsible person watching the pool, scanning the pool, doing a constant head count every 15 minutes. Okay, I got 10 people. I still see 10 people, keeping a track of who goes in, who goes out. Yeah. There's a lot of rules and responsibility with lifeguarding, but, at the end of the day, you think of the alternative, that responsibility is far worth the loss. So to step forward and do that is pretty good. If you can designate someone to have that, keep an eye on the high visible swim trunks, bathing suits, if you will. Yeah. Can't go wrong.
I'm going to go buy that neon orange and
Yeah.
neon yellow.
Just walk around like a highlighter.
Yeah.
Totally. It's actually almost laughable.
Yeah. Well, that's good information. I mean, people are purchasing swimwear right now, so it's perfect timing.
One thing to add too is a lot of kids will kick and scream. I know my kids did. Life vests, the full kid life vest. Until they're pool safe, water wings are great. But I was always, the self-rotating life vest where they have the pad in the back of the head. So if in the event the young child is left alone and they won't sink, obviously, or they're face down, they'll automatically flip over. And then, they go to their back. So obviously their airway's exposed or open, I should say. And there's really minimal danger. And they're going to kick and scream wanting to wear it because of the strap that goes through the legs and it rubs their armpits and, they get pretty upset. But hey, you know what? Sorry, deal with it. And then from there, once they transition out of the life vest, obviously swim lessons. I'd recommend swim lessons for everybody, even adults. Because adults think they're savvy swimmers, but I've seen adults get into the deep end or rivers, lakes, if you will, and full panic sets in. And when someone's near drowning or close to it or just in the process, it's pretty intense. And you got to remember, those adults or kids for that matter will do everything they can to push you down as a rescuer so their head stays above water. So swim lessons are crucial. About 2 years ago, an event took place where we responded outside of our city into one of our neighboring cities where all their units were tied up and they called for assistance. So we responded into that city to a pool. It was a community pool with a private instructor for an event for a swim swim event with, I think there were 3 or 4 kids that were that they scheduled one instructor for. Mm-hmm. Well, this one instructor had finished his evolution with this one child and placed the child on the edge of the pool with the assumption that the child would hang on, as most kids do. We've all seen swim lessons, just hang here. Well, parents were at the pool. Place was surrounded by, I would say, 5 to 6 adults, several kids running around, and that child went underwater. Let go of the pool, went underwater. Swim instructor was in the pool with 3 other children.
Oh, wow.
And so they always say children can drown without a sound. Mm-hmm. It's very true. Child let go of the wall, goes underwater. Unknown amount of time. We show up, child's unresponsive, had been pulled out by the instructor, and we do our procedures and get that child to the hospital. And with our care, obviously the rapid response of getting the child out of the water, putting the child in recovery position, we then transported the kid lived, last I heard. So it's just one of those things where it can happen in an instant, and that's, the swim instructor was in the pool, and adults were around the pool, and it still happened. So you can't stress enough the importance of having that extra set of eyes or that responsible child who's swim safe, watch other kids to help. Mm-hmm. So equate that to a backyard party, to a public pool during a pool lesson, or to a pool with several people. Mm-hmm. It becomes increasingly more difficult. So your heightened sense of responsibility should be through the roof.
Right.
And another thing that I was going to bring up is with barbecues, everybody's eating, having a good time. You see kids cannonballing in the pool with mouthfuls of food. So we went on a call, and this actually happened at a private residence in our city, where a young child was eating grapes in the jacuzzi. And the grape skin got lodged in the child's trachea. Oh my gosh. And we got called out for a unresponsive child in the pool. And we pulled up, and we found out the child was eating, started to choke, and it's actually classified as a choking-induced drowning. And unfortunately, the outcome was different. We took the child to our local hospital in Placentia Linda Hospital, and unfortunately, it was too late. We couldn't do anything for it. Little 4-year-old. And it was one of those things where the story goes, bag of grapes in the pool, kid's eating, begins to choke, goes unresponsive, goes under. Well, the parent walked away to go back to the house and grabs something, comes out and finds the child under the water. So especially with choking, obviously you can't talk anyways because your airway's closed. But it was just one of those things where I have, since that call, this is pre-children for me, I'm so aware of what they put in their mouth before they get in the pool. Because I remember as a kid, peanut butter and jelly sandwich, mouthful, you run and jump in, you don't even think twice about it.
Right.
So now it's one of those things where everybody eats on the side of the pool because it's the thing to do. You hang out, right? Make sure everybody's done. Make sure you're done eating. Plates away. No more food near the pool deck. Now go for it. All your mouths are clear. You're all talking. We're not chewing on anything because just like that, jump in a pool, even a cold pool for that matter. What do you do when you get in cold water? Right? You have a mouthful of food. You get in cold water. Next thing you want to do is take that breath. It goes right into your windpipe. So just another thing to think about.
Wow. Yeah. I definitely would have never thought about that.
Yeah. It's just one of those things where, and stuff that we are exposed to and think of, unfortunately, bad things happen all the time, and no one would think about it. Right? I can't tell you how many times I sat in a jacuzzi, gnawing on something. You don't think about the consequences, right? Especially for someone who doesn't know CPR or doesn't know the Heimlich maneuver, and you're the person that does, and now you're the one in trouble. What do you do? Right. So you better pray to God that phone's handy so someone call 911, right? So yeah, there's so many things that can happen or transpire that could be obviously tragic, but if you're prepared for it, at least you have that increased chance of survival, or someone else does. Yeah.
That's a lot of information, but
it's
a lot of helpful and life-saving information, which is really great. And hopefully people can, share this information with their friends and family and keep it in the back of their mind the next time they go to a party, a pool party, or just anything happening, any event happening with a pool.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And, I also mentioned CPR. I would recommend, if you don't know CPR, go take a class. American Heart Association, there's private instructors everywhere. We actually have a private instructor who works for our department who teaches classes all the time. He's pediatric certified. He's obviously adult certified, and I believe he's AED certified. That's another thing too, is knowing how to use an AED and where they're located, especially like at the
Right.
plunge.
So can
Yes.
you explain what an AED is for our
Automatic
listeners?
external defibrillator.
Okay.
Basically, it's what you see in TV. Clear shock. You push the button and it's going to defibrillate the heart. Sends an electric current through the heart to obviously hopefully restart it in the event that it's a viable rhythm that can be shocked for the person to come back. And they talk you through the process. The AED has a verbal process: start CPR, stop CPR, advise shocking. And you actually physically push the button and it will shock. So it's just one of those things where you can't go wrong having it. You can't go wrong knowing how to use it. One thing that we train with is you pull someone who's unresponsive out of the pool, they're going to be wet. Anytime you introduce electricity to water, it's a recipe for disaster. And the pads won't necessarily stick as well. So if in the event, God forbid, someone ever has to do that, dry the patient off, get them to a clean surface, and go through the process there. Now, however, we've all walked around a hot pool on a 90-degree day, 100-degree day. Your feet are on fire. You have an unresponsive patient. You're on your hands and knees, something you don't think about because you're going to be pumping adrenaline, but you lay exposed skin onto a 110-degree surface, God forbid, asphalt, concrete. You're going to start burning the patient as well as yourself as you're working on the patient. So if you have a grassy area, you can get the person to a flat, mattress-like surface because you don't want that spring. You want, if in the event you have to start compressions, you want that hard surface. Just get them off the concrete, get them off the asphalt, get the patient dried off. Grass is probably ideal if you have it. But at the end of the day, I mean, if you have to do work where you got to do work, then do it. So, but yes, I can't stress the importance of CPR and that knowledge as well, especially with peds or young kids.
Yeah.
So
This might be out of left field, but there's this episode from The Office and they talk about, the CPR and the easiest way to remember is to do chest compressions to the rhythm of Staying Alive.
Staying Alive.
Yeah.
By the Bee Gees.
Yeah.
I would sing for you, but I've got a horrible voice. But yes, that song, we actually trained to it. One of our
Really?
former EMS
Oh.
managers who used to work here, whenever we do recertifications, we'd have all the dummies laid out, station 2, and she'd blast the music, and then you just do your compressions, that downbeat. And what CPR is designed to do is, even if you don't give the breaths, right? Because everybody, COVID or exposure, and I'll be honest, when people, they're not breathing and you lose body function, vomit, water, you can imagine what comes out of the body, right? So people are skeptical to go mouth to mouth. Well, that's why they stress compressions. Compressions is, if you and I are talking, our blood oxygen saturation is currently anywhere between 95 to 100% without supplemental oxygen. And so what they're teaching by just the compressions alone, you're circulating that oxygenated blood to perfuse the brain, to keep the brain alive, right? We don't want the death to the brain to happen because that's when you hear brain dead or the patient is alive, but for lack of a better term, a vegetable, right? Because they don't have that oxygenated blood. So by doing compressions for that time that before EMS gets there, you're circulating that oxygenated blood because oxygen just doesn't dissipate, doesn't go away into thin air. It stays in that bloodstream for a duration of time. So 1 to 2 to 3 to 5 minutes before we get there, if you're doing compressions, you're just keeping that patient's brain alive, even though they may not be responsive. If you want to get down and give the 2 breaths, or if you know how to do it, then by all means, I encourage it because, you obviously know the full package. Breaths, compressions, save lives. Time is life. You get that going, you just keep that oxygenated blood. It's all that matters.
Yeah. All right. So kind of switching gears.
Okay.
What is the difference between heat exhaustion and a heat stroke?
Okay. So summertime comes around, right? And we're out physical activities, running around the street, cul-de-sac, you got a hot blacktop, you're not hydrating. Heat exhaustion is, your body is a temperature of about 100 degrees plus. So above 100, below 104 is your range for heat exhaustion. And signs and symptoms that we will see is facial flushness. Face gets really red. patient or the person who is exposed to it will have a headache, possible nausea. They'll throw up for no reason. Increased weakness or lethargy, just kind of out of it, just super lackadaisical, just moping around. Profuse sweating, right? Their body is sweating to cool. It's your natural cooling device, right? You feel the breeze, the liquid cools, it cools your body. Well, that's your typical heat exhaustion. Your dehydration, you're just exposed to heat, and your body's just kind of in the process of doing it can to cool itself off at its best ability. Well, that would be classified as heat exhaustion, and treatment for that would be remove the patient from the heat. Remove the patient's clothes if possible, or obviously if you're in public, you're going to maintain modesty. Just dump a bottle of water on them. Cool their clothes off, right? Just soak their clothes. Put them into air conditioning. Put them in an air-conditioned car and just start that cooling process. Super hydration. Just keep them, just tons of fluid is basically what they need. So like I said, heat exhaustions range from between, because we sit at 98.6 temp, right? 2 degrees. Now I'm starting that exhaustion process. If I start spiking above 104, basically what happens there is that's body temperature. Your body, it loses its ability as a cooling system. It loses its ability to cool itself. This is where you're going to see the severe cramping. You're going to see a decrease in mental status, like an orientation, person, place, time, and event. I may know my name. I can't tell you where I'm at. I know where I'm at, but I don't know what time of day it is. Stuff like that. They're not present. They're not there. Patients can become delirious. They start seeing things, hallucinating, go into seizures. A lot of people can get combative and not even realize it. Super irritable, and just for no reason. And I know, like, if I get hot or dehydrated or like hangry, same concept. You get that just irritable for whatever reason, and you don't even realize that you're dehydrated. And so with heat stroke, and you notice you touch their skin, it'll be the hottest skin you've ever felt. You know that they're going through that process. You need rapid cooling measures right now. A rapid cooling process would be stripping the patient down, all clothes off, get them in a bathtub full of ice. Okay. Rapid cooling measures, because you need to drop that body temperature. And prolonged exposure to that, you are basically, the body's going to shut down. And they need rapid transport to the hospital. They need IV fluids. They have cooling measures at the hospital that can be in place. But to recognize the transition from exhaustion to stroke is patient was hot, saying how hot it was, they're sweating profusely, and now all of a sudden they're not sweating. I touch their skin. It's very hot to the touch. I don't have a thermometer, but I know that this feels extremely hot to where they were just a couple minutes ago. You can definitely tell, I don't know if you guys have kids, but you can tell what a fever of 102 versus 104 feels like. Yeah. And it's a significant difference. And that's when bathtub, ice, cold water, cold shower, call 911. We get there, we transport right now. And what'll happen too, especially with kids, they'll be exposed, they'll hold on, they'll maintain for a while. They're good. They'll maintain that. And then all of a sudden they'll fall off a cliff and their body will just crash, meaning their body will start to shut down. So we need to, especially with kids, get them to the hospital, chalk right away, St. Jude, wherever. Same with adults, but yeah, heat stroke is definitely more severe than exhaustion. And you'll see the significant transition from the signs and symptoms of the headache, the nausea, the dizziness, the just weakness or lethargy, to borderline seizures, combativeness, disorientation, altered mental status. You'll see that transition happen, and like, okay, this person definitely needs some treatment. So yeah, don't take heat exposures lightly.
Okay. Good. So with that, are there any places for our residents to go to?
Yes. Our city, we have Brea Mall, great spot. AC breaks. We all know AC breaks in the middle of the summer. There's only so many AC people who can come out and fix it. It may take a while, a day or two. Go to the movie theater. Go to the mall. The mall's free. You're not going to get charged to go walk around and shop. Movie theaters, it's expensive. You're going to incur a cost, but at least you'll be in an air-conditioned building. The community center, that's always an option too. You can go hang out there. Why not? So there's definitely places, even family members. Hey, can we come over and hang out? Your AC is working, mine's out. We need to get out of this heat for a while. there's definitely options out there. You can just hop on the Brea website and find out anything you need to know.
We have the mall, theaters, the Brea Community Center, and the Brea Senior Center.
Yes, the senior center as well. I forgot, off of Seavers.
Yeah.
Yes, great place for the senior citizens to go hang out.
Yes.
Yeah, all kinds of activities form, and just great place to kick it and get out of the heat.
Yeah. And there's also the library.
Knowledge is power. To go sit in a library, I hear you.
Yeah.
You know, you got books at your fingertips. Why not go flip some pages and learn something while you're cooling off?
Yeah.
I'm all for it.
Awesome. So I wanted to round out our discussion by talking about the importance of weed abatement.
Yes.
So I know this past year we had a record-breaking winter season with rain, and it caused Brea's vegetation to grow and flourish. But now that the warmer seasons are upon us, or sort of, or they will be.
Oh, yeah. They're on their way.
The overgrown vegetation is dying.
Sure.
And it's drying out. How can Brea residents help, keep Brea safe?
So, yeah, I mean, we've all seen it. We've had record-breaking rains. The mustard grass is the long, tall, stringy-looking grass with the yellow flowers on it that we've seen in our canyons and the hillsides. But lately, obviously, we're kind of in a June gloom right now. Lately, you can see how the hills are transitioning from that vibrant green to that light tan. Eventually, it's just going to be that dark brown, or the California gold they call now because of the drought. And fire season, we don't really have a season anymore. It's pretty much year round. Wildland fires are popping up and down the state left and right. So with rain comes growth, and with growth comes danger, right? Mustard grass, we walked through the hills in training not too long ago, and there's sections where it's overhead. I'm 5'11", and there's grass overhead. What does that transition to within a matter of 3 weeks from now? You've got giant tumbleweeds, light, flashy fuels. So with that, obviously, screams danger. There's measures in place throughout the city just with our Fire Prevention Bureau, and there's a flyer you can get on the website, the Brea website, with a number you can call to contact our Fire Prevention Bureau, and they can come out and give a free residential inspection. And our city, anybody in the high fire danger requires a 100-foot clearance around their house. Now, what does that mean? It doesn't have to be down to bare mineral soil. You don't have to, I'm not saying it needs to be just dirt, but it needs to be maintained. What that does is it allows a safety zone, if you will, from an immediate zone, which is 0 to 5 feet from your house, and an intermediate zone, which is 5 to 30 feet from your house, and an extended zone, which is 30 to 100 feet from your house. And it's just clearance. And what that will allow us to do, it provides us safety. It provides time and distance from flame impingement to your home. And wildland fires are so unpredictable. It's not like a standard structure fire where you have a box, or let's say a kitchen. It's surrounded by 4 walls, a ceiling, and a floor. That fire is contained to that box for the most part. A wildland fire is completely different. You have fuel, you have weather, topography, meaning aspect or what side is the hill facing, how steep is the slope. All of these factors come into play to how fire is going to react in a canyon or in a scenario. And so if you have a house in a high fire danger zone, then it's incumbent upon you to maintain that 100-foot clearance around your house. Our expectation is not bare mineral soil, but just to maintain manicured property. If you go on vacation, your patio furniture, take the patio furniture out or the padding and put it in a garage. Close your garage. Put screens up on your vents into your attic so embers and fire casts don't blow through. God forbid there is a fire. We don't want it getting in the attic. What does your roof look like? Wood shake shingles. Those are, for the most part, a thing of the past, but we still see them. Wood shake shingles are just the cedar planks that are on top of roofs that are all warped and twisted from years, covered in pine needles, which is just a giant tinderbox for a brush fire. Now they have concrete tiles, they have asphalt roofs, they have so many different options out there for that reason. To basically give your house a better chance of survival. You go through houses and you'll see wood piles packed up against the side of a house. Move that away from your home. Close drapes, close your windows if you leave on vacation or for any duration of time in a high fire time or when there's potential for high fire danger. So just stuff to think about. It's kind of like how we were talking about pool safety earlier. have that presence of mind to think about, okay, if in the event a fire were to pop, is my house going to be safe? And trust me, we'll do everything we can to protect life and property on our end. Mm-hmm. We'll prep the house. We'll determine if, see what we can do to make it viable in that time that we have before the fire gets there. But we can only do so much because I run with a crew of 4 and we're spread out. Mm-hmm. So you usually get assigned 3 or 4 homes or a cul-de-sac, and that's our area of responsibility. So in that time of before the fire approaches, we only have so much time to get there or take care of what needs to be done so we can effectively fight fire. So, yes. But going back, you can contact our Prevention Bureau and request a free inspection. They're more than happy to oblige. But just so everybody knows that our prevention will be rapidly in a short window of time, hopping in their cars and patrolling, not to give tickets. We're not out there writing tickets, but we're out there advising, hey, think about this. Let's go ahead and trim these trees. Let's go ahead and lollipop these trees. Lollipop means, picture a lollipop. You have the trunk of a tree, bunch of dead leaves and branches hanging off. Just cut that stuff off and get rid of it. Mm-hmm. Pine needles that have fallen from pine trees, we call it duff. Clean that away, get rid of it so you have that bare mineral soil. And I understand that, in this economy, times are tough, and with abatement incurs a cost. Mm-hmm. So it's not always the easiest to get people motivated to do it. However, consider the alternative, right? And people stay at home and refuse to leave their homes because their livelihood is behind a closed door. Mm. Just work with our bureau. Our bureau will work with you and try and maintain that 100-foot clearance. Because at the end of the day, when we're out there, it's our lives trying to save your property. Mm-hmm. So we're going to do what we can, but we're just asking for all the help we can get.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's really important stuff.
Yes. It is. It's crazy. You get out there on a fire and stuff, next thing you know, the house next to you is fully involved. Mm-hmm. Like I said, the ember cast gets into an attic and we'll do what we can, but we can only do so much.
Right.
So
we're going to talk about this in future episodes, but since I have you here as a firefighter, mm-hmm. I want to talk about emergency evacuations.
Sure.
And what does that look like?
So in a high fire danger area, PD will be patrolling up and down the streets. You won't see it so much from fire. However, unless we engage with a resident, we'll say, hey, there's an evacuation mandate. PD will also say it's strongly advised you evacuate. If in the event you live in a high fire danger area and there is a fire approaching and you were told to evacuate, my recommendation would be to pack up and leave. If not, realistically, what does that mean? You become a part of the problem as a part of the solution. Because when things get bad, I've seen daytime turn night from smoke. You can't see 10 feet in front of your face. There's embers everywhere. And now you as a resident are trying to get in your car in full panic and leave. Your street's bottlenecked by fire engines. There's PD units that are parked. You're not going to be able to go. And so what does that mean for us? Now we have a family of 3 or 4, or the standalone resident that is sprinkling the garden hose on his roof that's not doing much, if anything at all. And now they want to leave. Firefighters, it's our duty to protect life and property. We will do what we have to do to keep you safe. However, that may not always be the case. If you decide to stay and we get pulled off of your street or area to go to another area that has a higher threat, someone may not be there to help you. So now you're on your own. And we've encountered that on several incidents, not so much in Brea, but throughout the state, because we go up and down the state as a part of a master mutual aid program. And there are people who, and I get it, they want to stay home and protect their livelihood. Mm-hmm. But it's not always the best, because what's property versus life? Mm-hmm. You can't replace life. You can always replace property, right? So if in the event you come across, let's evacuate as soon as possible, because you become more of a problem as a part of the solution.
Well, thank you again so much for being here and sharing all this great information with our listeners. Clearly, there's a lot to consider regarding safety year-round, but especially in the summertime. So thank you so much.
It's absolutely my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course.
Look forward to doing it again.
Yes. So that's it for this episode of Brea Talks. This episode and all our episodes of Brea Talks are available wherever you get your podcast, as well as our YouTube channel and our city's cable channel, Brea TV. Don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, rate, and review. Thanks so much for listening in as Brea Talks.